But now, my message for 2025, and it's this, and it's nothing new. It says, listen to the Guru's narrative and practice the Guru's narrative and realize the Guru's narrative. Always say, I am the self. I am consciousness. Now, Baba gave me a number of very significant teachings, and he told me different things, and they're very important to me. And I always feel that whatever he told me, when he gave me a teaching, that I have a responsibility. Whatever blessings the Shakti gave me, I have a responsibility to share it with others. And that's quite selfish too, because I know that it not only benefits other people, it benefits me too. That once you have, it's the nature of the Shakti that you expand it by sharing it. Other things you keep tight and keep like a little miser. But Shakti you should share. Share it liberally, and then you grow in that. And the most significant thing he said to me happened on November 5th, 1971, in a question-answer session in the Ganeshpuri Ashram. I asked him a question about ego. I've been gestating this question for a long time, because I sort of driven myself a little crazy with thinking about ego and all this. In fact, it drove me to India, and I was thinking about it. So I finally got the right formulation, and I asked him about it, and he answered, in effect, don't worry about ego in either of its forms, the deflated, contracted form or the inflated form. His actual words were, don't think I'm a beggar or I'm a king. In other words, don't put yourself down or puff yourself up. Then he said, always think I am the self. I am consciousness. I am Shiva. And I can't tell you the transforming power that his words carried in that moment. Something happened to me. The Guru can communicate things by touch, by word, by thought, and sometimes when it gives the right teaching at the right time, it enters you and the energy goes through you, and I was blown away by it. And I have to say that my life is really divided in two. Before he told me that, and after he told me that. There are two parts of this. We all carry the narrative, I'm a beggar or I'm a king. We carry these narratives inside of us, these stories that our mind constantly recites to us. The radio station, the podcast in our brain is constantly saying these things. If your narrative is more, I'm a beggar, then it's like I lack. You have tearing thoughts. No one loves me. I'm alone. I'm weak. I'm unlovable. I'm stupid. I'm ugly. I'm misunderstood. I'm invisible. Now, nobody here has thoughts like that. That's a joke. And we're always complaining and feeling sorry for ourselves. These are because of the narrative, negative ego narrative that we hold inside. If we're inflated, it's more like, I'm the greatest, I'm better than everyone else, my farts smell like roses. People like that. The problem with inflation, you'd think that's pretty good. That's pretty good, but the problem is that reality comes up against it. And when that happens, then you get angry and you flip into the other narrative, tearing thoughts, and the beggar narrative. And both of these narratives are ego-based. And we learn them, we don't really know how we learn them. We learn them maybe from our parents, from our friends, from our world. Maybe we took them from past lives, but we have them going on. And no wonder we get frustrated and unhappy and so on. And then we turn to spiritual life. And it's true for me that these narratives were making me pretty miserable. Everything in my outer life was going well. I had just gotten married, had a career, it was going well, and yet something going on, and I knew I needed something. So we turn to spiritual life then, and we discover a new narrative, and that's the Guru's narrative. The Guru, the sages, the scriptures, they all tell us something completely different. They say, I am the self. I am consciousness. If you read Shaivism, that's what it's saying. You are Shiva. You are the self. You are consciousness. All love, joy, and wisdom dwell within me. The Gyan Bharava says, everything is within you. The great gurus say, look within. There's a treasure house in there that you're not aware of. Fantastic. Fantastic. When I first heard Baba say these things, I was blown away. It blew out the guilt I had and the self-hatred I had and all these things. Once we introduce to this narrative, once we hear this truth and it resonates within us, then the spiritual task becomes to hold it and to make it louder in our brains, louder than the ego narrative or the beggar/king narrative. Imagine if the narrative, I am the self, was stronger in your head than I'm unworthy, I'm a sinner, I'm weak, and so on. And there's a battle in the head. And the process of making this narrative, this divine narrative, louder is called sadhana, spiritual practice. It's the spiritual path. The spiritual path, when you understand it simply, is only that. It's shift your narrative to the narrative that the great sages give us, that comes from higher consciousness, and stop believing the thoughts that come from ego and from attachment and aversion. Therefore, in my message this year, I want to share what Baba told me. And it was, as I said, the single best thing I ever heard. And if you nurture it, and if you practice it, there's no limit to what you can become. So again, my message is, hear the Guru's narrative. Always say to yourself, you don't have to proclaim it. Say, I'm the self. I'm the self. No, say it to yourself. Say, I'm the self. Ignore the ego's narrative. I'm a beggar, I'm a king. Ignore those tearing thoughts that lie to you and tell you that you're worthless. Ignore that. Don't make the mundane narrative more real. The Guru's narrative, make it more real, and it is actually more real. It's the real story. We got it wrong. Have to rewrite the script. Even when the ego's narrative is filling your mind, sometimes it'll be that way. Your mind will be filled with negativity and self-hatred and doubt and anger and jealousy and misery of every kind. Even then, a little part of your mind should remember the higher narrative, and you should know, tell yourself, I'm getting this wrong. Even though my whole being is obsessed by this, I know this is wrong. Don't lose yourself completely in it. Keep a part of it going in your brain. And if you do that, it's a great triumph. And eventually, that narrative will triumph. So live the Guru's narrative. Always say, I am consciousness, I am Shiva, I am the self, I am a divine being. And my hope for everyone is, may Baba's words explode in your inner world, as they did in mine. May you become what you already are in truth. That's my message for whatever year this is. Satyanath Maharaj.